Good evening, wonderful people in our community. Welcome to our next new normal, coping in the COVID world here in Mono County. Tonight we're gonna, I don't know why this makes me laugh, but tonight we're gonna talk about exhaustion, because I think some of us are feeling a little bit of that. And I think in a national way, in a county way, and a state way, we're feeling that. There's all ways tonight we're gonna learn about what that looks like and how you'll know if you're exhausted, if you don't already. And also, thanks to Beth Cohen, who's returned with us for this segment. We're going to find out some things that we can do to manage our levels of exhaustion. So we have a Q&A. You can ask your questions or make your comments. We would love to hear from you. The last time we did this 2 weeks ago, we heard from a lot of you, and we really, really appreciate it. It keeps the conversation moving towards what our community needs and wants to hear about. And so please put anything you want to in the Q&A. Ready, Beth?
I'm ready, Robin. Thank you.
Are you feeling a little exhausted?
I am so exhausted. It's a perfect time to talk about this topic. I want to thank you for suggesting it. Good evening,
Awesome.
everybody. And thanks for coming on. I know some of these topics we might be experiencing and feeling, but just sort of exhaustion is one of those that I am hearing chronically from people that I speak to and experiencing it personally. And what's sort of interesting is that for a while, I had just assumed that I was actually, quote unquote, working too hard. And then I realized after I took 10 days off and didn't feel any more rejuvenated, that it definitely wasn't about working too hard. So, sort of ask yourself, are you feeling exhausted lately? Because I know that I am. And so I started to do a little discovery. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a clinical and organizational psychologist. So of course, as a social scientist, I'm always fascinated by some of these topics. So I started to do a little digging, and I realized that it wasn't only me that felt exhausted. Actually, it appears that it's global. It's not even statewide, necessarily countywide or US limited, nationwide. It's global. And the question would be, why? Why is this experience when many of us really are not, we are resting, we may be even sleeping okay, and we still feel exhausted. So here's what I discovered. What I discovered is that there's a number of reasons why we're exhausted or we tend to be more tired than usual. Number one, some of us feel like we're sleeping well, and we are not necessarily sleeping in restorative sleep. And part of that is because this is a time where many of us are just feeling sort of a chronic, sometimes even just low level of stress or vigilance that is keeping us up. Some of us also are triggering that by continuing to, for me, if I read news right before I go to sleep, I know I'm going to be up another extra hour. I realize that there's certain things I'm doing that it's actually creating that. So I'm trying to be better, but of course I'm addicted to finding out information, because that's what happens during a time like this. So sometimes I'm not as good at it as I'd like to be. Also, for those of you who are on Zoom or other platforms a lot, or if you're finding you're in front of a screen a lot more than you used to, whether it's television, whether it is your computer screen, if all of a sudden sort of you notice that the number of hours you're on these platforms has increased significantly, there is something that is passively stimulating about these platforms, and there is with that can come a level of energy or an exhaustion from the platforms themselves. So that's another piece. Now, some people have asked me about why it's so different than being in person with people. Why? Like, if I could tonight, I would love to be up in Mono County, hanging out with all of you, and having an opportunity to sort of be in your presence. Because when people are in each other's presence, it actually builds energy. It builds energy. But in this sort of flat platform, it actually takes energy from us. So just something else to think about. And please, if you're noticing other things that are taking your energy, I'd love for you to sort of give it some thought. And we'll talk a little bit more of what to do about that, and how to sort of offset or create more energy, how to offset some of the fatigue and exhaustion. But I wanted to first talk a little bit about another part of why it is that many of us are not only exhausted, but we may have other symptoms as well, including some significant anxiety. If you take a look at the national statistics right now, guys, it is now we're at our, I believe, 19th week, or certainly 19th to 20th week doing this, sort of having our lifestyles change so significantly. And what's really kind of interesting about that is that with this lifestyle change, there is a looming threat for us, right? It's called the pandemic, and it's a looming virus. So what was really interesting, one of my staff put this together last week for me, and I found it so incredibly helpful. I don't know if any of you have ever seen the Maslow hierarchy of needs. Abraham Maslow was a researcher, and he was really fascinating. And what he said in the 1970s was that we actually operate off of a hierarchy. That in fact, if you don't have your lower parts of your hierarchy taken care of, if your life is not, if you are just sort of in your life in a sense of survival, right? If you don't have enough to eat or enough to drink or haven't slept enough, right, you are going to not be able to move up the hierarchy. And if you take a look at the top of the hierarchy is what he called self-actualization. I think today we would call that amazingly productive, creative, just the ability to be in the moment and to really embrace and enjoy life. But at that time, he called it self-actualization. So if you take a look, here's what we've realized as we've been looking, and my team is looking at where are we in this hierarchy. And what we realize is that the pandemic has sent us into these two areas where we need safety and security and where our physiological needs are taken care of. And as well, obviously, as our psychological needs. So that's included. So if you think about it, if we're in sort of the survival mode, right? And we are very concerned about our health or our security, like our jobs, our finances, anything that's going on with our lifestyle right now. I know right now I've talked to many colleagues over the last week and a half that are just waiting to know what's going to happen with schools. I mean, the parents who are waiting to find out this sort of lack of predictability, or not even being able to predict and increase in uncertainty. All of this area right here is exhausting. It takes a tremendous amount of energy. So if you're wondering why it is that you would love to probably hang out with more family or hang out with friends or be part of, the community, actually, ironically, that would probably give us more energy, but we also know that right now it's not as safe. So we can't do it in the way we're used to. So what's happened is that the pandemic has created us here. And as a result, you guys might notice that you are not functioning the same, not only based in mood, but also productivity. We see a decrease in productivity. We're seeing an increase in people feeling like they can't attend long, like they're not able to focus as well. They don't feel as creative. I mean, because I speak to so many people, I'm hearing this a lot lately. So I just want you to know that it's not at all surprising. And not that it makes you feel any better, but a lot of us are in this boat. So it is as a result of what's happened to our lifestyle. Also, we're not engaged enough. We are definitely not engaged enough. So I just want to go over some options. And then I wanted to talk sort of in more detail about conscious breathing. So exhaustion actually is a physiological, as well can be a psychological state. But physiologically, it's actually, I don't know if you guys know this, but we have two little balls right above our kidneys in our backs, lower backs. And those balls are called our adrenal glands. And our adrenal glands are really the energy centers for our body. And you guys know that if anybody runs or does a lot of, when they work out, you'll know all of a sudden you'll have that spurt or that push for energy. And that's your adrenals going, whoa, they're doing exercise. I'm going to give you more. So what's sort of interesting is many people are now what we call adrenally exhausted, because the other thing that also ignites the adrenal glands is when we are feeling super stressed and feeling kind of like scared or anxious or all of those things that at different times of the day, some of us are experiencing. Because of the great uncertainty and a lot of unpredictability, as well as just for those of you who are working all the time or having so much to do, you're just tired from doing your life. So my first question, we're going to look at how do we create more energy. One is awareness. What gives you energy? Which is a really important question. What creates energy for you, but also what takes energy away from you. So it's something to think about. Now, I'm going to say it a little differently, and I didn't write it down because I didn't want to offend anybody, but it's also who gives you energy and who takes energy away from you. And sometimes we've partnered with these people that take energy away from us, right? Or sometimes, you know, there are close people. They may be part of your family that you're now with, you know, on, you know, what we call the germ family, right? That you might be with them. But I say this because it's really important that we start to be aware of what's creating energy and what's taking it away. And of course, we know, and most of us know, that activity, exercise, being in nature, all of that will replenish adrenal glands. It replenishes us. Restorative sleep does as well. And restorative sleep is different than sort of just saying, oh, well, I know I slept. Restorative sleep is a deep enough sleep so that the adrenal glands actually are replenished. So by the time you wake up in the morning, you're not as tired as before you went to bed. And I don't know about you guys. I'm looking forward, once I'm done, to hearing this, but I wake up just as tired as when I go to sleep. And it is the most unbelievable experience to me. Now, I have to tell you that also, so let me go just through these and then I'll say a couple more things. Eating healthy whole foods replenishes adrenals. And many people don't know that because you think, wow, how could food like give me that kind of energy? But whole foods, guys, are merely foods that have not been processed. So it's vegetables, fresh vegetables, fruits, you know, all those things that are sort of kind of grow from the ground can actually help us. So that's another thing that's kind of interesting. Engaging more is very important. And I don't know about you guys. I was saying this today during our meeting, wasn't I, Robin? And I don't laugh enough lately. I don't know if you guys find this, but you know, I'm on Zoom a lot and it just like nobody understands my jokes on Zoom. So I like stop them, you know, and when usually if I would be in person, my experience would be, we would be laughing a heck of a lot as well as talking seriously about things. Because unfortunately in my job, that's what we do. Is talk seriously about stuff too. So how much are you engaging with other people? How much are you engaging with activities that you like and love? What do you need to do to really kind of burst or create some of a burst of energy for you? And then how much are you laughing? Because laughing is incredibly important. It's really important. And if you aren't laughing a lot, do me a favor, the next television show you watch or movie you watch, look for a comedy. We now have a deal in my household is that for every show that we will watch, I don't want to watch scary shows, but any show that I will watch that has some kind of a depressive part to it, we have to offset that with some kind of comedy. That's our deal in my household, because otherwise we just beget more darkness. And then the last part is conscious breathing. And for those of you that don't know me, you know, I have taught thousands of people how to meditate over the last 20 years. Actually, I believe it's up to almost 21,000 people. And mostly those people are people that work in different industries. And conscious breathing is one of the keys. You could be fortifying your adrenal glands all day long if you give yourself permission to focus on your breathing. So let me tell you what I mean. Just for a moment, like spend a little time with me for a moment if you don't mind. Just allow yourself to let all the air out of your lungs for a moment. Take a breath in through your nose. Hold it for a moment, and then exhale through your nose. Letting all the air out of your lungs. And allow yourself to try that again, please. To take another breath in, please. And this time, make it a little slower breath. Hold it at the top of your breath for a moment. And then please exhale, letting all the air out of your lungs. Conscious breathing, guys. And now I just want you to find a very, very easy, natural breath. Just find an easy, natural breath for a moment. By the way, we can consciously or unconsciously breathe. So we know we're unconsciously breathing because we're all breathing while we're still doing life and we're not dying. Obviously, if we stop breathing, we will not be living. But the conscious way of breathing is where it is that we actually have the opportunity to replenish our adrenal glands. So as you're now focusing on your breath for a moment, you're going to notice that thoughts are going to come into your head. And by the way, there's a lot of myths about this. So thoughts are natural and normal, and you'll always have thoughts come in. But what I'd like you to do that's a little different than what you usually do is I'd like you to notice the thought observe it, and then just allow it to go away while you refocus onto your breathing. That is one of the keys to conscious breathing. Because I can tell you guys right now that a lot of our thoughts based on what's going on in our lifestyles, right, with the pandemic and our lifestyle changes are pretty scary. Some of those thoughts are really sort of anxiety producing. So I'm probably one of the first psychologists that might tell you this, but I'm not a big believer in thinking. I am a believer in acquiring knowledge, but not a big believer in thinking, because a lot of our thoughts are very automatic thoughts. They're what we call in my industry self-talk. And self-talk tends to be a bit negative, sometimes very negative. So I say that because if you give yourself permission to focus still on your breathing, and when you notice you have a thought come in, you just observe it, no judgment, observe it, trying your best not to react to that thought, and then go back again to your breathing. What happens is we learn to neutralize our thoughts. And when we neutralize them, what we're doing, the more we do this conscious breathing, is we not only replenish our adrenal glands, but we're also lighting up a part of our brain, the left prefrontal lobe in our brain, which really is the seat of where we can start to experience peace of mind and experience those aspects of health and well-being. So I would give each of you, while we have time to talk, by the way, the only time you can't focus consciously on your breathing is when you're speaking. But I would offer that while we have the next 45 minutes together, continue to focus on your breathing while you're listening. You might even notice that you listen more intently. And if you notice that, oh, I stopped focusing on my breathing while I was listening, or while I was, putting in a chat, or while I was even speaking, then just go back to your breathing. Again, suspending all judgment around the process. So I want to thank you guys for listening. I hope you all stay safe out there, please. And I want to move it back over to you, Robin.
Sorry, I was consciously breathing.
You okay, or did you fall asleep?
No sleeping, but it does help, I'll say that. So can you take that down so I can see the people?
You sure can. I sure can. Let's see let me get this off.
So we have a panel this evening, as we typically do, of lovely humans, and want to welcome everybody today. And remind you that there's a Q&A, so question and answer. If you put your questions in there, comments, anything you want to talk about, we'll try to address it tonight. And so thank you. Thanks, Beth. That having a solution right now of something that we can do that's doable and doesn't cost money, I think is extremely helpful. Just a matter of remembering to do it. How's everybody doing? Panel?
Exhausted.
Can I tell you something that I keep hearing from county employees, Vaughn's employees, people in general? And it's going to sound super negative, but it's what I keep hearing and what I'm thinking myself with all the tourists and all the people and all the anger. Sometimes I just hate people. Can I say that out loud?
Permission granted.
I keep hearing it, and it's this train that everybody seems to be getting on, and it's not individuals. I meet really nice people, and people that I work with are individually nice. I meet tourists that are as individuals nice, but as a whole, in general right now, people just suck. And I think that's what's really bringing me down.
I was just going to say, to add to that, Ingrid, the problem is, you get out there, you're like, wow, people, but then you miss people so much. So then that just gets your head spinning and is exhausting in and of itself.
I love people. I love you guys. There's so many people that I love to see, that I miss, and that I want to be with. And then at the same time, I hate people. It's so confusing.
You know what, I think it's about feeling disappointed. I feel worried and disappointed underneath my hating of people. Worried that people, kind of just worried about the amount of energy that's going in a negative direction, as opposed to all that energy being harnessed to make our county strong and to make each other strong, keep each other going. And I mean, that's one of the reasons I look forward to doing this with you all is it does, I always do feel better at the end, and I hope our audience feels better at the end. And that it's just that, like, I'm not alone in this, you know. I read something someday, all the days are mushed together. I read something about the signs of exhaustion, and oh, sorry, I just got a new squeaky toy for the puppy. That was a mistake. It's just the signs of exhaustion. I had almost all of them, you know, and like being more irritated, not sleeping well, not being able to focus on things for very long. And so anyway, I think that was part of tonight's goal. I'll take that from him.
You know, I think that what's really interesting, and I know I've told some of you guys this, that, I mean, when was the last time that in our lives that every other person, even the people we love, are potentially could harm us? I mean, so I know when I go out, I'm excited to go out because I feel like I need to change pace. And then I go out and I'm like, I can't wait to come back because I'm now anxious about being out. And I don't know if you guys experience that, but it's so amazing to me that you know, we have masks on, so I don't even know, are people growling at me or are people snarling? I wouldn't know, right? We hardly are even greeting each other anymore. At least that's in Orange County. Maybe you guys up there are friendlier than we are. And it's just almost, it's remarkable to me that I can't connect the way I'm used to connecting because I'm incredibly have a high need for that, you know, sort of connection with human beings. So on the other side, I feel real isolated. I'm sorry, go ahead, Ingrid.
No, I usually travel a lot for work, so I feel like I'm out of town a lot, and I do things and I go places, and that's not happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't really gone much of anywhere. And I was thinking today as I was driving to Bridgeport, and I have this beautiful drive, I want to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I thought, I don't want to leave home. I'm so conflicted about that.
You know, it's interesting because I took a 10 days staycation and I felt no better. I told Robin this, right? I felt no better. I mean, it was so disappointing. And then we decided, as my family decided, that we were going to go on day trips, 4 days in a row of day trips. And we did it. We brought our food. We were really, really careful. Although I have to tell you, if anybody has gone on day trips, it's hard to find bathrooms now, which was a little freaky to me. Starbucks will not let you use a bathroom, and that's always been the cleanest. But grocery stores do, we discovered. But I say this because after 4 days of just getting out, we even did a drive-in movie theater one night. We did a drive-in movie, which we hadn't done maybe in 10 years. And I actually felt better. I felt like I felt like I was more recharged than I did 10 days of a staycation. So I think something's going on too, Ingrid, about being home all the time. There's not enough, we're not engaged enough, and there isn't enough stimulation.
You know, to that, Beth, about doing something that recharges you. Yesterday, I was just mentally exhausted, and I got to do something that is mindless, right? That I don't have to think about it. So I went outside and I started pulling weeds, right? And before I knew it, I was out there for 2 hours pulling weeds, but I felt so relaxed.
Yeah.
Just doing something I didn't have to think about. And, you know, like Robin said, it didn't cost me a dime, and my yard probably, you know, looks a lot better now without all those weeds, but it was just so relaxing to sit out there in the quiet and, you know, just doing something so thoughtless.
Yeah, the chat, we do have people, you know, chiming in about, I think everybody's feeling a level of anxiety. We also have this question, what about the exhaustion that comes out of the situation and rules changing so regularly? Which I mean, man, can we all relate to that? The exhaustion of why am I putting in all this work and planning when next week the rules of the game will completely change? How do I keep the energy up? I think that everyone on this panel too is connected to the county, and we're seeing a lot of, there's a lot of inconsistencies from all over. There's a lot of misinformation. Things are changing so rapidly, and it's hard to get a grasp of, you know, it's hard to wrap your brain around that and then to know a path forward. So yeah, I think some of the strategies, Beth, that you kind of talked about would help with that. But when things are changing so rapidly, even though we feel like we're not moving forward, what are some coping mechanisms for that? How do we keep our energy up?
Well, you know, part of it, Justin, is realizing what we're living through right now. And part of it is being really adaptive. So one thing that we're seeing in the research right now is that those that are able to sort of pivot and roll with it and just sort of, oh yeah, of course something's going to change, and sort of have realistic expectations about this, they're doing better, because then each thing that changes doesn't end up kind of punching us again. And I know that as the time has gone by, I've gotten more tired, but I've also I've become more adaptive, because it's like, how many more things can change at this point? Now, but here's the other piece to it. It's exhausting because human beings hate uncertainty. We love to be able to predict our futures, even though we really can't, but we certainly do plan our futures, right? And we can't do any of that. So that part, so in my opinion, is that part of it is going to be how we think. Robin, I'll turn it over to you for other your clinical perspectives, but.
Sure. I think one thing is like you're saying around certainty, is in any ways that you can create certainty in your day. Again, I think there's a lot that we can't rely on in terms of information because we're in a pandemic. And I think one of the things you can do is develop some kind of routine. I mean, obviously I have dogs because you hear the squeaky toy. So I have a routine every morning. Do I want to do it every morning? I do not. Like this morning, I did not want to do it, but I also know that it really is what I hang my day on. So I make myself do some routine. And I think the other thing that we're seeing, and I know the elected officials really are feeling this, but I think also those of us that work with people, is there's this feeling that we're not telling people things that we know, like we're holding information back, when in fact, we're all learning these things at the same time. And so, 1 week we do plan and go in some direction. I mean, I can't, so I'm exhausted. I can't think of examples because my sharp mind has left me. I'm hoping after the pandemic, it won't be about age. But I do think that we end up with like people thinking that like we know stuff, but we're just not going to tell it to you. And in fact, we're kind of trying to just keep up with what's happening. And one of the things we're learning is more and more and more about this pandemic. Each couple of weeks, there's more science behind it, and that informs what we are doing. We didn't have that information a month ago or 3 months ago. And so I'm really trying to remind myself that give people the benefit of the doubt. Everybody's trying to do their best in this, and we're all wearing down.
One of the questions. Oh, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to add to that. Also, us folks that live up in North County, we do a lot of our shopping in Nevada. So it's also not just things changing it within our own county, but now we have to cross state lines to go grocery shopping, and then things are completely different in Nevada, which seem a lot more lax. And there is a certain comfort to getting such as like fast food from there, but then you come home and then you start worrying about like, well, may I have, did I come in contact with somebody? There's a lot more people out there. So then, that anxiety kicks in after, it's like it's almost like a roller coaster, right? You're there, you're getting some good food or whatever it is, right? You feel good. And then you come home and you start feeling that anxiety, like, oh man, am I going to start feeling symptoms? So that's just, another curveball that we deal with up here in North County.
That's a really good point. There's a really good a question from and suggestion really from Dirk. And I know, Robin, your team is doing amazing Facebook Lives, pretty much on are they daily now? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So his question is, why do we not have a morning breathwork seminar along with an evening one at a time accessible for people? But do you want to talk about some of the resources and the live events that you guys are providing for the county, or for anyone really?
Sure, unless Cassandra or Stephanie's squeaky toy is definitely louder than mine. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things we're doing is to be adaptive, is trying to like find different things we can do on the daily. I mean, to manage staff capacity, right? People are working really hard right now, and they're working extra hard because of the COVID, and we're remote. So not wanting to overwhelm staff, but at the same time, we could certainly host certain types of meditations. And I think even all of us, I think our staff meetings ought to start with 5 minutes of, conscious breathing. Maybe the board meetings have conscious breathing kind of put into them so that we are really kind of creating a foundation of that. We're going to need it. We have a long haul here.
Especially given this new format, right? I mean, there's no more windshield time. There's no walking. There's no
Exactly.
Yeah. You go one Zoom to the next.
Can I add one more thing too for those, and especially for, that question is such a good one. There are some regular meditations that are going on that are free, and it's through Mindful Leader. If you go on to Mindful Leader, I believe it's mindfulleader.org, you will see that there is, on top of every hour across the world, there is a meditation every hour on the hour, 24 hours a day. And they didn't used to do that, but anyone can participate. You just sign up, and then you press a Zoom link and you're in. And the first 15 minutes, there's a leader that is, facilitating, and there's a meditation. And then the last 15 minutes, there's a really nice discussion. And I have met people from all over the world, guys. And especially if you do it certain times of the day, you get all the people from Australia. And then if you do another time of the day, you're getting people from Europe. So it's pretty cool. And then a lot of times right at night, we get a lot of Californians because we're still up and the East Coast isn't. So mindfulleader.org.
Mindfulleader.org. I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then,
thank you for that reference, Beth. And just to add to that question, so we kind of gauge how all of our Facebook, the people that are on Facebook, right, our employees, we were getting exhausted ourselves too, and trying to come up with ideas. We are always open to feedback and what you guys want to hear. We also noticed that our stats were going down, so we weren't getting as many views as the beginning. So we kind of slowed it down. But definitely, if it's something that that you think that the public wants, we can definitely accommodate that.
awesome. Thanks, Stephanie. So Supervisor Corliss, I'm going to throw this one your direction. You've really championing this balance of public safety, public health, tourism, maintaining a really kind of healthy environment. And this question is, I'm angry at people who trash the environment and who don't wear masks, and it just gets worse every week. How can I deal with this? And it's a little bit of a Thursday question, but also I think relevant to this.
Yeah, I think it's a Wednesday question, because I think Thursday, we have leaders who maybe won't say what I'm about to say, kind of like what Ingrid said earlier. And we also, I just want to note, I've been monitored. I know Cassandra's looking at the Facebook Live too. We had a similar question about that, or a statement about that too, about the tourists acting badly and no regard for our community and environment. It's exhausting and scary, and it also makes us angry. And I just want to say to everyone, you're right. It's exhausting, it's scary, and it's infuriating. And I think one way to cope is just to collectively acknowledge that. And we don't do that in our Board of Supervisors meetings or necessarily in the Thursday meetings, because these are our, strong leaders getting us through this emergency. And they also want to point out that, we are trying to balance economy with, with public health and community. But I right here, let's just take a minute to say it's nuts. It's absolutely insane what we're seeing out on the land. And I've talked before about my loving kindness meditation. I do that, but then I will just say, what the F to myself, like, what are you doing? Why are you camped right on Duck Lake? And why is there poop in the bushes? I mean, we can go on and on. Facebook is full of this. Examples of this. It's really hard. It's really hard. I don't know if it makes anybody feel better, but it's not just us. It's happening a lot of places, but it's really bad here. And, we can talk to you tomorrow night. They can talk to you about what local agencies are trying to do to mitigate that. But it's scary. And, for me, I'll just say the ways I've coped with it. I joined the trail volunteer group to be a trail host. And so last Saturday, I signed up and I pick up trash. They gave me one of those brand new, like out of the bag trash grabber things. And it's really, and before that, I know a ton of us are doing that here, you know, that it feels good to help and pick up trash. And with the trail vest on, I talk to people. I really, when I'm by myself and not wearing a trail vest, I'm like, Stacy, it's like that commercial for people when you buy a house, you turn into your parents, like, did they ask for your help? No, he's a plumber, you hired it. So I try to stop, but when I have my vest on, so that's the thing. But I want to say, because I think there's some people on here who are really, really struggling with this. You know, let's keep talking about it, but you don't have to take this on. I think one thing we're doing as a community too, those of us, we love our outdoor spaces, is we're really taking it personally and thinking, I gotta go do something. And you know, this is a big issue that we're grappling, just like COVID. And so find one little thing you can control. You know, it goes back to that, maybe pick up a bag of dog poop or cigarette butts. So I'd love to hear what everybody else says. Lottie's fired. My dog's gonna bark, so I'm going on mute.
Yeah, so just to echo on what Stacy said, I definitely have been really mentally exhausted based off of all the comments that I've been just seeing on social media of, you know, tourists, you know, the amount of people that are in our town at the moment. But like Stacy said, let's be part, let's help our community. I mean, I've caught myself actually picking up trash on my street. And I'm like, why am I doing this? But also too, as a good civilian, you know, I don't want to see trash anywhere. And I think if we want to tackle this, I think we should do definitely our part. You know, instead of ranting on about what we see and what people are doing, let's take that little extra step. It does not hurt anything. And I honestly felt a lot better just, picking up empty water bottles, recycling them, and just trash. So I think that helped me a little bit, like mitigate me being angry, because I've just been seeing all this trash all over. And it's exhausting to just have a lot of people and not being mindful and careless. But I mean, if we want to be a community, let's work together.
I like that, Cassandra, to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. I get super frustrated. I'm on a trail, I wear a buff. It's super easy, just pull it up over your face, but others don't. So what? You did your part. You pull up your buff, you walk past them, pick up the piece of trash, do what you can, and don't worry about the other people. There's only so much you can do about other people. And people, some of them are great and some of them suck. I mean, they just do. They're on vacation, they've checked their brains, they don't care, they're outside, whatever. Sometimes you just got to let go of the anger and just do what you can do. And just pick up a piece of trash, pull your buff up. Or if it's so frustrating that you can't do it, then find someplace else. Go at a different time. Go for your hike at 6 a.m. when there's nobody, when the tourists aren't out there. Don't go at noon. Find times that are going to work.
Take yourself out of it. You can't go look at it sometimes. That's so true.
Yeah, and acknowledge that. I mean, what we're all acknowledging, like I started with, people can suck, and I'm hearing that a lot. And then I'm also meeting some really, really nice people. So just find the balance. It's hard. It's really hard, but let go of the anger, because it's not helping.
I think now we know what it felt like in the beginning of the white people coming here to our indigenous sisters and brothers.
Right.
Like, what are they doing to our place? And I think the other side of that is our stewardship works. Our campaigns around knowing how to behave in the mountains, not everybody does it, but what we're seeing without that is they actually work. And that's a good thing for later, I think, as well.
Can I ask you, Beth, sorry to put you on the spot, but as a psychologist, can I ask you, and we're still getting a lot of comments on Facebook, people like, great, I don't have time to pick up trash. Picking up trash might make me more angry. And there's something about this idea that people are coming here and that we local leaders can't control it. And I'll be honest, I don't think we can ever control people driving up 395 and being here in a manner that will satisfy this anger. But how do we understand what the other people, okay, I'm not going to pick on you, but you're from Orange County. So why, who are the, what's in the mindset of people who are coming up and ignoring no camping or no parking signs or that sort of thing? How can we understand them?
It's a great question, Stacy. Can I ask it back with a question though for a moment? Is it worse this summer than it would be any other summer? It's
Yes.
worse. So I want us.
It's not just here. COVID kind of nearby travel to public land sites, other than places like Yosemite that have a reservation system. The U.S. Forest Service is struggling mightily with this. Yeah. Lake Tahoe is seeing it. We've even heard, Forest Service areas outside of places like Santa Barbara are seeing it. So it's a COVID-related issue.
Yeah, and we're seeing it at the beaches more than we've ever seen it before down here. So if we're going to look at it, and I don't fully know the answer, so I'm going to just throw out some ideas. I think that people are in crisis. I think that many of us are walking around and we are in some level not only of stress, but of crisis. And I think that just like some of us are saying, you know what, we're tired of being angry, we're tired of being frustrated, like, can we let that go? Can we just kind of focus on ourselves? And I'm just wondering if people also are in a place where they don't care as much. And that saddens me, by the way, because I think to myself, oh my gosh, they're not caring about the environment. There's a big talk down here with the beaches too. We've never seen the beaches dirtier. I don't understand it. And there's not even that many people on the beaches like there would be on a regular summer. And it's terrible. And my sense is that I just think that it could be a symptom. And that doesn't make it better, but I do think that that helps us understand it a little bit. Because we know that most people care about the environment. And this group, the tourists coming up, probably are not that much different than tourists that have come up previously. And so why now would it be so different? And that's my only thought.
I think too, it's going to be interesting, and we've talked about this, that with distance learning and schools starting virtually, I mean, you're just going to see more of it, I think, into the fall. It's just going to be, we're going to have a year-round tourist, season now when kids are able to kind of connect remotely, and it's going to be interesting.
And the only safe place to go, Justin, is to go outside, right? I mean, that's what all the scientists are telling us. If you're going to do something, do it outside. So I can't think of a more beautiful place than to come to you. I haven't. I don't know if you'll let me in, but I can't think of a more beautiful place.
So I'm seeing that, and I'm hearing that too from a really good friend that works for the mountain, that the people who are visiting are meaner. Yeah. They're meaner to staff. They're meaner at Vaughn's. People are usually our tourists are nicer, and maybe even we as locals are meaner. We're on edge. People are fed up. They're frustrated. They're just mad. And so we take it out on each other. And it's sad because oftentimes the person you're taking out on, the line level person, they're not the decision maker. They didn't put that policy in place. And it's really hard for that person. So then they're in a bad mood. And so then they go to Vaughn's, and then they're mean. And then the clerk at Vaughn's gets treated poorly. And so then they go home and they're mean. And it perpetuates. Everybody's angry and mean.
It's this vicious cycle, Ingrid, because you're right. I think people travel because they are trying to get away from being angry, and then they get somewhere else and they realize, wow, it's difficult to exist here as well. You go into the stores, everything is a challenge. You go to a restaurant, everything's a challenge, and here you are supposedly on vacation, and so it just sort of multiplies the anxiousness and the anger. I think you're right.
Well, and don't you think this is so fatalistic, right? I mean, whether you agree with that there's a virus or not, the worry is that you could die of it, and people are dying of it. And so maybe there's that piece of like, who cares anymore? Or maybe whatever's after this, we have no sense about it. It feels like the apocalypse. And so why not just toss your trash out and spray paint a rock and be a jerk? Yeah. Like it kind of gives you permission to be base in a way.
Yeah. Maybe we can turn it around. Somebody maybe on this panel made a really good suggestion the other day of what are we waiting for? Drink the good wine now. Enjoy things now. You save something for later. What are we waiting for? I'm going to do that. We're going to have tri-tip. I'm going to open up a bottle of red that's a really good bottle that I'm saving for nothing. What am I saving it for? Tonight.
If you guys look at the national statistics, by the way, and you look at the metrics right now, you guys will see that every week people are getting angrier. So every week, as we're seeing increases, sort of these mental health curves, we're seeing increases in depressed mood, and then we're seeing increases in irritability and anger. And, you know, I was talking today to a group, and I was showing some of the statistics that my office has been keeping just from our polls, because I speak to so many public service professionals every week. And even the week I realized, or one of my staff actually realized this, the week when we had the largest amount of cultural unrest, that week, anger spiked in ways in our metrics that we hadn't seen yet. It really spiked significantly. And so I also think that people this lifestyle is not becoming to a lot of us. And people feel really out of control.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna mention, Beth. I think there's just so many things that decisions that are being made for us that are out of our control, right? Like for us parents, and you know, having to do this distant learning, we didn't really have an option. It was just, hey, this is the way it's going to be. So I think it's the feeling that we're losing control of a lot of things that we had control over before.
Yes, and it's sort of interesting when you say it, Stephanie, right? Because, you know, everyone has their own level of risk tolerance right now, right? We're all sort of assessing our risk tolerance. And you know, some families are being told that their kids need to go back to school, and yet the parents don't necessarily trust all of the safety measures, not because the schools aren't trying, but because science hasn't caught up with all of this yet, right? And then others are, you know, it's just hard to have your children at home if you're also working full time. I mean, it's such a complex process that no wonder I don't sleep well at night, because, you know, I'm drenched in this stuff all day long, and talking to people, and it is so complex. So I agree with you. A lot of us have lost a lot of our autonomy, including on how we're even raising our children right now. I mean, that's remarkable. I think we've earned being angry. I just don't believe that we've earned doing the behaviors some people are doing. But I think we have to acknowledge that a lot of us are angry.
Well, it sounds so cliche, but I think, you know, we talked about earlier, it's like focusing on yourself and you know, focusing on the positive and you doing the right thing and knowing that your contribution is moving things in that direction. It does sound cliche, but hopefully kind of help you get through that moment.
Yeah, and to echo that, Justin, I saw someone on the Q&A mention the kids in June Lake picking up trash. I did catch that on social media. It was very heartwarming to see the little kids out there picking up trash. I think they're really setting an example.
One thing, Justin, just looking at the Facebook Live, you know, speaking of anger, you know, we have someone, and I've certainly heard from people on social media about this, you know, who's angry at us, at people like me and Ingrid as local elected officials for not keeping them safe. And, you know, and that's a tough one. Our emergency operations center, and again, tomorrow night is the time that we hear from them and get into the technical details of all the very specific programs and processes and guidelines that they have, and they're working with the state. And that's what's in place to keep us safe. But because, you know, we're having this influx of visitors, especially I think people who live in condos and apartments around Mammoth, and just see this constant parade of visitors coming when there's supposed to be these guidelines and programs and processes in place to keep them safe. And they are pissed off that we aren't stopping these people, that we aren't at that condo shutting it down. And I'm just naming this. I don't have a solution. We are not going to catch all those people. We are not going to catch everybody pooping in the woods. We're not going to be able to keep everybody perfectly safe. And that is terrifying.
And it's true, and it's the nature of our business. We do the best that we can with the resources that we have, and I know that sounds lame, and you hear that all the time, but we can't be everywhere all the time. I can't catch every person in Vaughn's not wearing a mask. I'm certainly not even my responsibility, but I can't expect the town to catch every person that's not following the guidelines for renting out their condo. And we're going to have this constant rollover. And there are some that say shut down the short-term rentals, but the people are still going to come. And then there's going to have more people camping in the woods, and there'll be more illegal campfires. And then we'll have to deal with that aspect of it. We would just move the problem from one place to another. And I don't have an answer. I don't. And that makes you mad. It's frustrating. You want us to go fix it. That's what you're paying us for. That's what you elected us to do. And you're not doing it. I hear that. And I don't have an answer. It's hard to answer it, especially like Stacy and I, we work for the county. A lot of this falls under the town, but we live in the town and we feel it. And people call us and they text us and they Facebook us and why can't you fix this? And even if we worked for the town, I don't know that we could fix all of these problems all of the time. And I get how frustrating that is for everybody. I'd be angry too. If I lived in a condo, I used to live in a condo. We had terrible people come and rent all the time, clomping up and down the stairs. And that's when it was legal all the time. I can't imagine what it's like now when you're annoyed as heck that people are coming into your town. It's frustrating.
And can we do better? I think we're listening. You know, the town is, and our emergency leaders are trying to refine these rules and guidelines. You know, and if it gets bad enough, I suppose, you know, the state would have to go on another full stay-at-home order. But this is uncomfortable and it's really hard. You know, we have each other. We always say we're in it together, but it's pretty hard when you see some people that you're in it with not doing what they should do. We just have to double down on sticking together, those of us that are doing it, and keep trying.
Yeah,
I think it's hard for certain government officials, clearly not in this particular forum, to say it's out of our control. But I think what we're hearing and what you're saying is it's out of our control. It's out of control to the point where we don't have resources to manage even some of it or half of it, you know? And that now what we're trying to do is make sure it doesn't move from, if we close down campgrounds, it moves to the forest, or, you know, we're trying to manage that the best that we can, because there isn't an answer that makes it stop. And I really appreciate you both being so forthcoming. It helps. It's not an answer, but it definitely helps. I'm sorry, Justin, I totally interrupted you.
Oh, no, that's okay. You know, there was this discussion, as Supervisor Corliss mentioned, happens a lot at that Emergency Operations Center. And just today, some of the discussions centered around, there's so many things that they're looking to do. You know, first and foremost, protect public health and workforce safety. They're looking to manage the disease and ensure the system of response. I mean, there's these fundamental basics that need to be taken care of, just like we saw in the hierarchy of needs earlier from Beth's presentation. And, you know, it's providing accurate information and dispel rumors and phobia and fear, and then balance the economic development and the environmental and the social system with all of that. And then beyond that, you know, they've been really trying to focus on, with precision, bifurcating the county and the town based upon, you know, what's best for each. And so there's a lot going into it, and it's a challenge. And you know, it is. Someone's going to be upset with every decision, and you know, that's just the nature of the beast at this point, unfortunately. Cassandra, do you have any Facebook questions that we haven't addressed?
No Facebook questions. Stacy has done well addressing how people are just feeling, you know, they're angry, you know, that there's a lot of people in town, and, you know, saying we're not doing enough, but we can only do so much, you know, as county workers too. We definitely feel it every day, you know, when we have even our community conversations. You know, some of the information we want to give out, you know, it's difficult, so.
Stephanie, you're from the North County. Are you seeing the impacts in the same way? Is it a little different?
I'll be honest, I don't get out much.
Uh-huh.
I stay in my bubble. I really do try to just, you know, do one, that's what we've been trying to do, is just one big run over state line to buy the groceries that we need and just hunker down. But that's, what I was talking about earlier was that you go on to Nevada and it's a whole different vibe out there. The other day we did have to go out there for the ER to take my son out there, and it's just it's so different than when we lived in Mammoth. So and we recently did the transition in this pandemic, so I get to see the difference. But I do feel that there's a little bit more I wouldn't like comfort being up here in North County. I don't feel that we're as crowded as you guys are down in Mammoth. So that is the one positive thing about being up in North County.
Well, Stephanie, speaking of your bubble, we have a couple questions related to that. So many of us are in bubbles in which anger and venting feeds anger and venting among our friends, coworkers, those that you're kind of engaging with. What techniques in conversation within these bubbles can we employ to channel the anger away into something that builds better energy and addresses exhaustion? That's a really good
Excellent question.
Beth, we're looking at you.
I know.
Oh, no.
I'm looking at Robin and Beth.
I'm a direct communicator in those situations, and I am in those situations. And what I say is, I need a break. Can we talk about something else? And then come up with something else to talk about, which I find very curious is kind of hard to do. So I'm trying to do a little bit of reading about just mundane things like how territorial hummingbirds are, for instance, because I've got some hummingbirds in my yard that are buzzing my head, literally, and then it's like a very disconcerting experience. So I was like, why would that? Anyway, they're very territorial. Did you know that? No, see, I just got us all thinking about the hummingbirds in Robin's head and how it's going to poke me in the head. And I have this whole thing about getting a bacteria infection in my brain. I have the whole thing goes on because I'm anxious. But I think being direct, I think that we do feed on each other. It's happening in our workplaces where we're bringing this energy in and we make it about a problem that really is a solvable problem, but it starts to feel impossible because people are really worked up and angry. And I mean, the more, I think what we're learning tonight, I think what Supervisor Corliss is helping us with too, is that the more we just name what's happening, the better off we are. And if you're in a conversation where you need a break, if you can't get the people to stop, then, go outside the circle for a little while till it simmers down, if it does.
One of you wise individuals at one of these last discussions brought up, and I thought it was so genius, the idea of, and maybe this would work, but working with this group of friends to, everybody be reading a book together, everyone be watching a show together, so that when you do interact, you have something common and shared to talk about that is not COVID.
Yeah, it's interesting, Justin, because one of the problems is that we're not engaged so much in the world right now to have a lot to bring to the table, right? We're not bringing much to the party, even with our friends or our family. So I see where this is the commonality, this is the common thread for many of us. I was thinking as you were talking about the hummingbird, Robin, that we decided in our front yard we were going to build a beautiful Japanese garden that you see quite often in Japan. And we did. And I never thought I would be one of these people, but I rake it all the time, like in circles. And it's like the best distraction. And so I also think that we need distractions. We need to be able to step away from the seriousness of this and we're not, and not feel badly about that we need distractions. Because I think some of us think, no, we have to keep checking on the information or talking about it so we can make it better. And truth is that, that's not necessarily making us better. It's not necessarily working.
I have 3 friends that are reading the book about the 1918 pandemic, and that's what they want to talk to me about. So I'm like, no, I can't. Hummingbirds.
Donut recipes.
Oh, let's hear it.
I did make donuts. They were apple cinnamon sugar donuts, and they were delicious.
Wow.
really happy with that recipe. My husband's escape when I make him turn off the news is he watches the remodeling type shows, which is actually going to end up costing us money in the long run, but he's coming up with some really cool ideas, and it's not COVID based at all. He looks at things, he's like, we could do that, we could do that, we could do that. I'm like, whatever, as long as we're not talking about COVID, it's fine. It's great.
I think we're about at our time, yeah? I want to, thank all the panelists. Olivia for being our IT expert in the background, Beth, Cohen, Stephanie, Cassandra, Justin, Ingrid, Stacy, and all of you out there. You mean a great deal to us. That's why we're doing this. We count on you and your questions, and just knowing that you're out there. We're trying to make Mono strong. Our community matters to us a great deal. We will be back in 2 weeks on the 19th of August. That's a Wednesday. So mark your calendars, invite your friends. Thanks for putting together the Facebook Live, Cassandra and Olivia. I'm very curious to see if that adds to people enjoying or participating, or just maybe getting a little something out of our conversation. Hang in there, do everything you can, do your conscious breathing, reach out if you need services, but most of all, let's take care of each other. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Robin.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye.